Hi, my name's Jessica, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to format data in Excel making tables. And this is just an example. I've made up this data. Even though it may look similar to what you've done in labs, this is indeed different. So one of the things that you might see is that my table and then my trials, all of my columns, none of this is differentiated. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to highlight uh, the entire line going across the top of my table, right where the title is, and I like to make a thick bottom border. It's just my personal preference. And then when you have all the different headings, I like to keep them separate from the data as well. And what I do there is I actually make just a bottom border, not a thick border, just a small one. So the other thing that you can see is that this box is too small because it actually shows that it's 0.200 molar NaI, and it actually should be milliliters. So I'm going to add that in there. But you can't see any of that. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to actually change the width of all of my cells. And you still can't quite see it, so I'm now going to change the height of my cells so you can get an idea of what kind of formatting you would do. So you can see that here the cell is still not quite wide enough. So I'm just going to highlight some of these cells and make them wider. Not all of them need to be the same width. Another thing that you can see here is that I have 10 milliliters, 10 milliliters, 10 milliliters, and 30 milliliters, giving me a total volume right here of 60 milliliters. But instead of adding that up by hand, I'm letting Excel do the calculations for me. So you can see that in this box, I've used the formula B8 plus C8 plus D8 plus E8. And that adds up the 10 and the 10 and the 10 and the 30, giving me 60. So I could do that for all of them, or I can actually highlight all of them, and I can click on this great button over here called the Fill button, and I can fill down. And what that does is that takes the formula from this column and it uses it for this one and this one and this one. But when you do that, what happens is this is B8, C8, D8, and E8. But this one, I don't want to use B8, C8, D8, and E8. I want to use B9, C9, D9, and E9, and the fill button adjusts your formula accordingly. And so you think, oh, they're all the same volume, except they're not. This one is different. It just has some random volumes in it, and it also worked very nicely, and it does not give the same answer. So for concentration, what I've done is I've used the M1V1 equals M2V2 formula, and I have just switched it around a little bit. So I have my volume 1, which is the 10 milliliters in B8, and then I have my total volume, which is in F8, and I have divided B8 by F8, and then I've multiplied it by the concentration that I wrote up here. So you can see that in concentration I have B8 divided by F8 times 0.2, and that gives me the concentration. And I can go ahead and I can do a fill down in this one as well, and that will give me the appropriate concentration. And I can do the same thing with these two columns where I've already put in the particular formula. So for the thiosulfate here, I'm actually multiplying it by the 0.001, which is the appropriate molarity of that. It's not the same. And then one more time here, and I'm going to fill down yet again. So I've put in some random information here, and now I have a K that I'm looking to find. And you can see that it's still missing the parenthesis. The column's not quite big enough. So I changed that, and now I have this. And again, this may look similar to what you've done in lab, but the data is just random. So I want to fill down so that I have a value of K for all of my trials. So you can see that my K values are somewhat similar, but this one is wildly different, as are these two. But I want to find an average K. So I've written average K, and right here, I've used a formula to find that, and the formula is actually just typing equals, and then you type average, and you can see it pops up a little box there, and so I click on the average, and then it puts parentheses in. Then I can just highlight all of the numbers that I want to find the average for. I close the parenthesis, and I hit enter, and it gives me a number, which is great. But let's say I wanted to throw out this 09 column because that number is just so inaccurate. So what I do is I click on this formula again, and then I'm going to do 08, comma, 09 colon 014, and that gives me an average for every number except, oops, I'm sorry, it should be 010, and that will give me a number for every, or an average for every number except this trial that I'm throwing out. So I just hit enter, and it gives me that number. And then standard deviation is just showing how far off my k-values are from the average. So to do this, you're actually just going to type in equals, and standard is shortened to STD, and then it's, so this button right here, it shows standard deviation, and then again, I'm just going to highlight all of them, close the parentheses, and hit enter. I do the same thing with average deviation, except it's AVE instead of the STD. And so, although it should be one significant figure in this one significant figure in this particular example, what if it was 2? I just increase the decimal place, and again, it increases it, which is a pretty nice feature to have. So then if you were to print this table, and I go to print, you can see that it does not show nearly as much information as I'd like. And even if I change the orientation to landscape, I'm still missing my K, my average K, which is kind of difficult. So I'm going to go back to this page layout, and I can see this dotted line here that shows me where my page ends. So what are things that I don't actually need to have in here? So I really don't need to have the exponent in here, so I can click, I can right click here, and there's this button that's hide, and I can hide that. And I can turn around and I can also hide this column as well, and that's just by right clicking and then clicking on hide, and then I can turn around and I don't actually need to have, say, the total volume in here. So I can hide this as well, and it doesn't change any of my data. It just hides those columns. You can see that it goes from E to G. The F column is completely skipped. And that is quite fantastic, because now if we go back to the print screen, we can see that all of the information that I need from my table fits on here nicely. So I'm just going to go back to page layout, and because I hid a couple of columns, it actually took out the average K that I had written in here. And if you forget, all you have to do is click on the column that you have the numbers on, and you can look at what's written in there, and it's the average. So standard deviation and average deviation. So then I can just rewrite them here if I want. Standard deviation, and then if you down arrow, you go down, and then I have average deviation. So enter, if you hit the enter button, you go down, and you can also hit the down arrow, and if you hit the tab button, you go one cell to the right. So I hope that this gives you a pretty good idea of how to make tables in Excel, and I hope that this helps. Thank you.